Good afternoon, students. So yesterday we started the first chapter, Goods and the Service Tax, GST. So in yesterday's class, what we have learned is that GST is always calculated on the selling price. Okay, and there were two different cases. One was intrastate transaction and the other one was interstate transaction. Okay, so if the case is intrastate transaction, then the rate of GST will be divided equally. And we only have to calculate CGST and SGST. On that case, IGST will be 0. Okay. For an example, if the rate of GST is 18%, then CGST will be 9% of the selling price, and SGST will also be 9% of the selling price. Okay. So we have to divide it equally. 18 is divided equally. When the case is intrastate transaction, and the IGST and the value for IGST will be automatic 0. Okay. Now, if the case is interstate transaction, then we don't have to calculate CGST and SGST. In fact, we only have to calculate the value for IGST. Now, be clear with this. Be clear with these three important points. The first point is that GST is always calculated on the selling price. Okay, not on the mark price. So when we do the exercise, I'll be making you clear with this point number 1. GST is always calculated on the selling price. Point number 2, whenever a problem is there, we'll have to check whether it is a case of intrastate transaction or whether it's a case of interstate transaction. Okay, and if it is the case of intrastate transaction, then we have to calculate CGST and SGST. IGST will be 0. And if the case is interstate transaction, that is the third point I'm talking about. If it is interstate transaction, then we only have to calculate the value for IGST. So simple as that. Remember, it is calculated on the selling price. If the case is intrastate, then we have to calculate CGST, SGST, IGST will be 0. And if it's the case of interstate transaction, then we only have to calculate the value for IGST. In the second case, the rate of GST will be divided equally. In the third case, the rate of GST remains as it is. Okay. So as we have done yesterday, question number 1, now I'm moving to question number 2. For the following transaction from Delhi to Jaipur, fill in the blanks to find the amount of the bill. Okay, you can see this question on your books. Okay, for the following transaction from Delhi to Jaipur. So this part is very, very important. From Delhi to Jaipur. So it is not within the state. It is from one state to another state. Okay, are you understanding my point? It is from one state to another state. So hence the transaction out here is interstate transaction. The transaction out here is the interstate transaction, the second one. Okay, fill in the blanks and find the amount of the bill. If the marked price is 50,000, discount is 20% and rate of GST is 28%. Now remember that the case out here is interstate transaction. So rate of GST 28 remains as it is as 28. Okay. So we need to find, the question is given out here, find discount, find the selling price, find CGST, find SGST, find IGST, and also find the amount of the bill. These are all these things we need to find it out. Okay, so we start with number 1, find the discount. So here goes the solution. First of all, the case out here is interstate transaction. It is a case of interstate transaction. Okay, so how do I find the value for discount? Now discount, as the discount percentage is how much in the question? The discount percentage is 20%. Okay, and 20% of what? It is 20% of the marked price, which is 50,000. So discount will be 20% of 50,000. You do the cancellation, 2 zeros and 2 zeros gets cancelled out. So 20 into 500 will be 10,000. So the value for discount is how much? Rupees 10,000. Then we move to selling price. Now we know the formula of the selling price. If the discount is given, then we have to subtract the discount from the marked price. So hence the value for the selling price will be marked price minus discount, which is 50,000 minus 10,000, which will be equals to 40,000. Now this is our selling price, and we know that whenever we calculate GST we will always be calculating on the value of the selling price, which will be in the 40,000 out here in our case. Okay, so if we calculate GST, we'll have to calculate on this 40,000. I have also written out here, as we have learned, that GST is always calculated on the selling price, and the case is interstate transaction. Yes, the case is interstate transaction. We can read from the question. So if it is interstate transaction, then we know that we don't have to find the value for CGST will be 0, SGST will be 0. We only have to calculate the value for IGST. Okay, and IGST will be 28%. Okay, 28 remains as 28 because it is the interstate transaction. 28% of what? And we know that GST is calculated on the selling price. So 28% of the selling price, which is 40,000. Now we put 28 by 100 into 40,000, which will give you as 11,200. Okay, and then how to find the amount of the bill? The amount of the bill. What was the selling price? What was the selling price? The selling price was 40,000. 40,000 plus IGST, which is the value IGST is 11,200. So you add these two values, 40 plus 11 is 51,200, which will be the answer. Okay, now I'm taking this from your book itself. Go to your page number 5. This note is very important. You read 1, 2 and 3. Okay. Point number 1, GST is calculated on sale price obtained after deducting discount, if any, from the list price. Which means that yes, the GST is always the goods and service tax is always calculated on the selling price. And if the discount is given to us, we have to subtract that discount from the market price. Okay. Point number 2, in the case of intrastate, if the rate of GST is 18%, then CGST will be 9% of selling price, SGST will be 9% of selling price, IGST will be 0. So once again, I want you all to focus out here. Very important point for us. In case of intrastate transaction, GST will be divided equally, half of the rate of GST given to us. CGST will be 9%, SGST will be 9% if the GST rate is 18%, IGST will be 0. And point number 3, if the case is interstate, we just have to calculate IGST, and it remains as it is, like as the previous sum. Okay. The first example also I am taking out here. Example number 1. You read the question. A dealer in Calcutta buys some goods worth rupees 6,000. If the rate of GST is 18%, find how much will the dealer pay for the goods bought. Now, assume that you are the dealer. You are buying some goods. Okay, and the cost price of the goods is 6,000. Now, whenever we buy, we just don't give 6,000, okay? We give more than 6,000, and that more is the GST that we have to give the tax, okay? So let's read the question out here. First, you identify which case is this. So this is a case of intrastate transaction. This is a case of intrastate transaction, okay? So for the dealer, the cost of the good is how much? 6,000 rupees, and the rate of GST given to us is 18%. Now, since the case is intrastate, we know that we have to find CGST as well as SGST. And the rate of GST is 18%. So just divide 18 by 2, it will be 9. So 9% of 6,000, 9% of 6,000, which will be 540, 540. And yes, IGST will be automatic 0. Okay, so we got the value for CGST. We got the value for SGST. So what will be the total bill then? The total bill will be 6,000. He already has to pay 6,000, including the GST now. And the GST is plus 540 plus 540, which is total of 7,080 that the dealer has to pay. I hope you're clear with this. Now we move to number 2, example number 2. Given below are the cost of some financial services in the same city. Now mark this word in the same city. Mark this word in the same city. In the same city means again it is the case of intrastate transaction, taxable under GST. Cost of services are 500, 300, 400, 600. Okay. If the rate of GST is 12%, find the amount of GST on these services. Here is the solution which I'm going to explain you. Okay. Now This is solution for example number 2. Again here the case is intrastate transaction. So total cost of services will be, first add all the service cost, 500, 300, 400, 600, so we get 1800 as the case is intrastate. So how will I calculate CGST? Just half of it, 6% of 1800, SGST 6% of 1800, and IGST will be 0. So 6% of 1800 is 108. So 108, if we add it, you'll be getting 216. So hence the required GST will be rupees 216. Okay. And please go through example number 3 as well as example number 4. So that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay.